In the sys module, so we have seen the sys module.py. Any module, how do you import? Sys. Same like any other module. And if I go for the print dir of this sys module, we have a good number of things. How do you execute a file? Either go to the directory and execute or be there. So if I navigate to the directory, cd so-and-so, and if I can say, hey, Python so-and-so, if you see the dir, it has these many attributes, but not all attributes work in all the environments. Certain things will be slightly different, but if I can segregate them based upon their usage, so we can see that this sys module has the very basic things like implementations. This Win version is something very interesting, and Get Windows version is another thing. So these two will not work in a Linux environment. Right now, I was in this code space, which is a Linux environment. So what it is like, this has no attribute, so Win version. So why this is not having an attribute Win version? In fact, if you see the attributes, the Win version won't be there. But if you ask the same thing in a Windows, there will be there. So that is what you need to be aware of. So depending upon the operating system only, these things will be working. Okay, now I understood that this doesn't work. So it works only in Windows. Okay. So now let me execute the remaining part. Again, it is saying what? So get Windows version. This Win version and get Windows version won't work. But if you give a try in Windows, you can work. That's what you should be aware of. And if I take the remaining ones, so it will work. So this is what you should be aware of. Python is a platform independent language. Whenever you write anything, it works in all the platforms in the same way, but there is a slight difference that you should be aware. So the default versions, if you say like 3.10 so and so, so Python so and so, it is giving all the information, right? In the same fashion, I already showed you how to create a virtual environment and how to activate it. That also I told. Either you can work within a virtual environment or outside, because we are still at the basic stage. But generally, it's recommended that every time we should go into the virtual environment and work. So how do you start a virtual environment? You already created a virtual environment in the last class. Now we need to activate every time we come inside. So for that, we need to go inside. So under the venv bin, there is something like activate. So this activate shell we can take. So you can copy that path, entire path, and you can say like source the path, give the path. Means from the root onwards, it will say, it is saying what? Hey, source deactivate is deprecated. Conda deactivate should be used. That's what it's saying. So Conda is another kind of virtual environment creation. So package manager, you can think like that. So, okay, see. Coming back. So you see, this is one thing. And similarly, one interesting thing about sys module is the get size of, which we have already discussed about the get size of, but still I want to focus a bit is in the sys module. I told that like every basic data type, for everything we will have some size. If let's say I defined something like my int is equal to so and so, if I need to get the size of it, so there are two ways. So my int dot underscore underscore size of, sorry, underscore underscore size of. So like this also I can get, or sys dot get size of. Like this also you can pass anything. Means there are two ways in which you can get. So if you want to see the output, let me take like internet strings to get the same things. Now in this case, if I say clear and Python sys, You can notice that it's working. Did you see that both integer and the get size of both are giving the same result? Now, let me repeat the same thing for a larger number, float, all the basic data types. So, including strings, I will represent all. Observe, initially it is an integer, then I took a float, then it like a float, none value, boolean value, and a string value. For all these things, I'm asking the size. Did you see the size is the same? So for both the things, either if you ask dot size of or get size of, in both the things it is same. But let me tell you one interesting thing. If I take the same sizes for the data structures, means data structures means they are the structures which will store the data, the raw data. These are the raw data, which is the very basic data. So there is nothing to optimize. Whereas, is there any these kind of data types backend? Means Python will convert to C language and then it will go to the machine. But in C language, is there any list or a tuple or a set or a dictionary? No. So Python does this kind of thing. It has its own data structure. So it need to do that extra things, right? So that's the reason if you go for these data structures, the size is different. So every time underscore size of will give the basic size of the object, how much size it is. Whereas get size of will include the C header size too. So that is what you should be aware of. And in the same question, coming to the reference counts, I told the same thing there in the reference counts too. Reference count means like for any object, if you are referring, so you were asking like how many times it is referred. So if I ask for like sys dot get reference count, get reference count. This reference count will not be asked on variables. Reference count will be asked on the values. You give any value like 123 or something. Now, if I want to get the reference count, I can ask. Means like how many people, means how many systems or programs are using this number 123 in the code. Means not just in our program. By the time when we are working for this Python environment, how many are using it? If you see now, it is saying 6 times. So by default, you need to understand that if let's say I have modified it, I modified it and let's say like, 3 times I'm using. There were 3 numbers. For these 3 numbers I'm using. Now I'm asking, hey, what is the get reference count? Now, did you see? It is saying 17 times, now 20 times. Means like in the previous code, it gave like 6, right? Now it is changing. Again, if I ask, did you see? The previous count and extra. So by this time itself, it is saying 17 count references are there, plus these 3. So it is kind of like consistent. But these numbers you cannot dictate. But what we can tell is that how many things are using it. First of all, why we need to know this? Because Python goes with a reference-based assignment. Means every time how the memory management works is using a garbage collector, which will automatically remove any unplayed things. Just imagine that you go to a hotel, so you have your dinner and you leave the plates empty. The moment you leave, they remove the plates, right? Means they know that you no more want to eat and you left. So the plates are empty. So if they remove only, then they can accommodate a new person, right? It is the same scenario here also works. So it will try to see like whether it can be changed such that it can be referenced to others. To understand this reference count, how this reference count is understanding, let me give you. I took a numbers from 0 through 800 and I'm adjusting reference count for all the values. And did you see what happens? In the initial numbers will have a lot of references. Till 256, it will have a lot of references. And again, these reference counts will be slightly different in an interactive mode and script mode also. But you need not worry. But did you see? So the references were 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Over a period of time, if you go far away, it is saying 2, 2, 2, 2. Why this 222? Means every time when you are referring, you are writing somewhere inside, and this function also will make a call, right? So minimum 2 times will execute. That's what they say. Whatever the things you get, from that you need to subtract 2 numbers. Means for the numbers like 8 till 800 I did, there is no references at all at this stage in my code. So there were 1 references for these things. So there were like 2 references, extra, more references like that. And now let's execute the same code again. Again the same thing, because we are not actually referring more, so it's giving. So this reference count doesn't mean that it is only for the integers, because we have different data types. Every data type has its own way, things. So if I ask the reference counts for the different data types, for every data type it will give. Now the question is, so will the get reference count work for mutable and immutable objects? Yes, of course, these are objects, right? Whether they are hashable or not, that is secondary. We should store somewhere in memory. So that's the reason I gave a list of values and I got a reference count. Reference count is saying that, hey, this object is referred only once. Similarly, if I ask for the reference count, so there are like different things I can ask. If you see, I have one dictionary. So for this dictionary, I am directly assigning. You know this concept already. For mutable objects, if you are assigning two objects directly, the reference both will refer to the same object, but the reference count will not increase. Means it will not create a new object, right? Now, did you see? I am asking, hey, this document is referred by how many times? It is saying 3 times, 3 references. 3 reference means what? Because like 1, so you have assigned, 2, this was is there, and the third time, so this is there. And I'm asking a reference count of A as an object. Means now if I ask the get reference count of this dictionary, that's difference, right? So that's what I want you to be aware of. Next, similarly, there is one more thing. In the sys module, whenever you are working, there is 3 types of outputs. One is like whenever you get a output, you display. Whenever you got an exception, you display. And the other one is like whenever you want to take an as an input, that you take it. So sys comes with 3 things. These are called as streams. Standard streams, standard IO stream, input stream, output stream, error stream. So output and error are like the output, where like input is for the other thing. Means if you want to generally print something, till now we are using a print statement. But we can use alternatively sys.stdout.writeOf so and so. And if I do the same thing in an ordinary print statement, you are writing, right? Means in the backend, print function is also using sys. Like this. So clear and Python is also. Did you notice? These were 3 streams. It is saying like text IO wrapper. So remember this thing. We will go to this module also. I will tell a lot about it. And it is saying it about a write mode, and read mode. So observe these things. We will come back. But did you see that when we wrote in either ways, the output is the same? In the same fashion, if you want to output something, std error.write. If I execute again, did you see that hello world error came? So, but like generally when this std out error will come means, right? Whenever you are doing a raising an exception. So in fact, that will give a message, right? So that is same as this thing. Actually, this environment is not showing the colors, but if something shows, you will see the std out error in a other color. And in the same lines, if you want to work with the other things, std in.read, it's same like your input. So both are like almost same. And similarly, in the other lines, if I see, there are few other things. Whenever you are working about the modules, there were some things like audit, display hook, and all these things. So for display also they had a hook. So totally there were like different hooks for different purposes. So this is also one kind of hooks and others. See, whenever you're asking for something, it is saying like a built-in function. Means we can make a function call to it. So if you make a function call, so they will have their effect. If you say audit will work only when you give an event. Not at this stage, whenever you're going for logging, I will tell. Then the display hook also similarly. We define a function. Whenever you make a function call, so that function will be executed. So means like if I make a display hook, say like define hello print of hello world, I have something. Now I'm asking display hook is equal to hello, I'm registering. I defined a function and I'm registering. When you make a call, so it will be executed in the backend. You see? So like that, display hook and everything has a hook. So every hook has a purpose. I showed you display hook, exception hooks, debugging hooks, and all these things. And in the same lines, if you see the built-in modules, so the built-in modules means these were the built-in modules. So till now we have seen about functools, collections, and so sys module is another thing that you are seeing. Next you will see about iter tools also we saw. So like that, whenever need is there, we will see one after the other. And one last thing, we have seen that certain commands will not work in different platforms, right? To understand more about it, about the platform, there is one thing called as sys.platform. So if I ask something about the sys.platform, it will tell what is my platform. Python, it's so and so. If you see now, the computational platform is Linux because I'm working in. So if you have some code to execute, because like in Windows, some commands will be different, Linux, some commands will be different. If you want to execute something like that, you can based upon this condition. So for Windows, it is Win32. You may say that mine is a 64-bit server, but even though it will be Win32 only. So if it is Linux. If it is CentOS or so and so, it will be Linux too. So for Mac, it is Darwin. For Cygwin and others are there. So who gave these names? The developers who created this Python in the initial days, they gave it. So the same thing we are using it as it is. In the same fashion like this, there is one more thing about the platforms. If you want to know more about the platforms in detail, there is another thing called as platform. There is a module called as platform. So this is another module. So this module called as platform. Import. If I execute, it is asking, okay, use the environment. I gave a virtual environment, right? I'm asking. It said imported. Means like I don't have the value, but it's fine. Means this is one of the built-in. If you want to know the details, we can give this one. So in Windows, it will say like the Windows architecture. The same things I give. Platform name, platform is not defined. Okay. After we inherited, we didn't do. Yeah. You see, so for Windows, it will say like Windows PE. For the Linux, it is giving the architecture, which are the system architecture of it. 64-bit. So x86. So mine is a AMD 34. So that's what it gives also. And it is the system is Linux. So it is giving clearly. But this platform module will give a lot of other information also. Means like if you want the platform version, we can get like this. So Python version, Python implementation. So all the Python related details in one shot we can ask. So it is saying like C Python. This is what you should be understanding. So Python can be installed in different ways. Working in different ways. So the most common is the Python code will be converted to C language and then to the machine. That's why it's called as C Python. The other kinds of variants are Java based version, where Python to Java it will convert. That is called as JSON and others. So it is giving clear version like version tuple and version information, all the things about the version primarily. Next, in the same fashion, it will give the other details. Of course, like earlier it used to work, but you see here, it is a Linux. So when I'm asking Win32 edition, it is saying, no, I'm not a Win32 edition. So it doesn't work. So like that, is it an IoT device? False. Win32 version like that. So the version information, like this is an Ubuntu machine. So it is saying like code space and all this, you name, right? Everything you are getting. But like there was still a lot of attributes. You can give a try to understand more. So to understand more, you can give a DAR of this platform. You can notice the list of attributes. You see, give a try to understand. So what you can do, take this as an assignment, try for each of them and observe carefully. These modules has the other basic modules also within it. So ignore them. The remaining things you can walk through. Next, so apart from this, the other important point in the sys module that we should be aware is the sys.path. What is this sys.path? How it can be helpful? Basically, whenever you are asking for anything, it will check in the LEGB scope I told. Local, enclosed, global, and built-in. This is the way it will go. But whenever you are asking for something, how it knows where to go? So what is the order in which it should go? That details, if you want, that is about the sys. There is something called a sys.path. If you are aware, so it will help you a lot. To understand more, if I give like, hey, give me the sys.path. If I say clear and the Python J so and so, you can notice a list of paths. In fact, it's a list of strings. If you want to know better, we do a for loop on it to understand more. If I do a for loop, you can see all the list. So each of the strings means whenever I am trying to print for something or like a request for something, it is going in this order. Why in this order? See carefully. So right now I was in this directory. So that's the reason it will go in this directory in this way. So it will go in this direction starting from the current directory. Why this gave this like this directory 10 modules so and so? Because whenever you're asking, first it will check within the system, right? So local so and so, so local, enclosed, global, and built-in. So it will, after, if it is not there in any of these things, then it will check in the current directory. If not in the current directory, then it will go to the Python binaries. If it is not there, then it will go to the site packages. What is this site packages means? If you navigate, you will understand that what are the modules that we are installing will be in this directory. If I say like, ls, you can see. So that anything that I install, the virtual environment I install, it is in this directory. If I install anything like this, say pip install a small module, say like, Flask I install. This any module if you want to install, this is a process. But once you install, if you ask the ls of the site packages, I'm asking ls, this entire path of the site packages. Then you can see what are the module you installed will be there. But yeah, that's what you should be aware of. Next, after this, so why we need it? Whenever you want to prefer something, so we can use it. And also be aware that, so what are the packages that you have done that will be stored in this directory. Now, if I want to work on some module, somewhere I write something which I want to use it. I want to say like, addition, subtraction, I want to run. I will create one function just to have that. See, I have created two functions called as addition and subtraction, which I want to work. If I say Python, Python J path. Yeah. You see, apart from your path, your addition happened. Your addition and subtraction were happened. Now, this addition and subtraction I want to take to some directory. Maybe in the current directory, I want to do, say, J calculator dot py, and I want to place these two there. Now we see, I want to use these functionalities instead of directly. So I will comment this. If I comment, what will happen? If I execute, they will throw an error. Say that what? Add is not defined, multiplication is not defined. That we are about to clear. Then how do you import the data, which is means the files which are present in different directory, in different file? So this particular Python script is in the current directory. So I will take the path of it as it is in the current directory, and I can directly import. Maybe like, I will comment, and I will do import. What are the file name is there? Don't do a .py. It is in the same directory, right? So if I do .py, it is a file. Don't do the .py. That's it. As it will first check in the local, as there is nothing like JCalculator here. So then it will go in the current directory. Yes, in current directory, there is a file with this name. So then it will import it. And observe carefully, the moment I did you see a new folder called as PyCache was created? Observe very carefully, this is called as a bytecode file. Hope you remember there is something called as a don't create bytecode. If I do that, it will not create the bytecode. Anyhow, I will tell you it afterwards. But the moment you import it, it is creating that bytecode. What is that bytecode, sir? Can we see that? Yes. If you see the bytecode, it's a Python code, but like kind of you cannot understand. It is a Python specific bytecode. You cannot understand anything here. Everything was compressed such that only Python can understand. So why they create? To make it much more faster and performance oriented. For that they create. So if you want to know the dir, because for any directory there will be a dir, right? Anything that you import, there is a dir. Even for this also there is a dir. If I execute right now, did you see that it is giving some paths? But in this directory, you define two functions only. You didn't define all these things, but still you get it because these are all metadata about the file. And similarly, if you want to execute the addition and subtraction, so what I can do in this directory, I have these things. So instead of earlier how we did it, so this is a locally, but here in this way. So I can write a case for it for us to be understanding. Case 1, importing the scripts from the current directory. So if I execute, it works perfectly. And similarly, when you're importing, so we can also do selective imports. As I did absolute import, everything came. But what if I import like selective import? Means from this J calculator, say if I want to import only addition, then I can do from J calculator import add. That's the only functionality. So if I do like J calculator dot add of this one, or like just add of it, both will be same. So, but like when you're doing selective imports, ensure that local variables are not overwritten. So that's the reason, be careful when you're doing a selective import. And as you did a selective import of only addition, if I do like, hey, ask about, hey, subtraction of 2 from 3, it will not give because you didn't define the subtraction right. So that is how it works. And similarly, you can create one folder, and in that folder, you can do some operations and ask for the values. So for that, like what I do, I need to create one folder. Say like here, I will say, I will create my folder. In the current directory, I'm creating. See here, in the current directory, till now one file is there, we used it. What if there is a folder and if you want to use from it? So let's say I created a folder and something like I am writing like my ops, some folder, some file I wrote. In that, I am doing some math operation, math.factorial I'm doing. Now you see, in the current directory, if I say ls, did you see that in the current directory, there is one folder and within that my folder, there is a file. let's see how it works. So coming back to the sys.path, as we have a selective import, here also we can do. If something is in current directory, I can do a selective import, right? So in this folder, I want to import this particular file called as myops. So that's it. From my folder, I did directly. If I clear and ask, did you observe there is a new PyCache file was created, right? So like this means wherever a file is getting imported, that file you will give this one. That is a bytecode concept that you understood. Now coming to this file, within this file we have factorial which you want to execute. Now coming back, if I ask what are the DARs? So till now a file is there directly. Now the file is there indirectly in another folder and you ask it. So did you see same like an ordinary file? Here also you got same kind of things, right? Means anytime when you import any module, you will get these things which are very basic. This is called as metadata about the file. And apart from that, I have factorial and math. Because in this folder, I imported math, that is also there. I created a function, that is also there. Means whether you create a variable, function, imports, everything will be there, part of it. So when you're asking, all of them will come. So as I have a math, which is already there within it, I can use this math to do something. So generally we can do math.sqrt, right? Math.sqrt, and you can do some values. Let me try the same thing. With this math, I can do. So myops. So from that myops function, I am asking math.square root. Of course, we can do. You got the result. And similarly, this myop has a function which is factorial. So that operation also we can do. So means that's the reason whenever you're nowadays importing any module, if you see the DAR, you can see other modules also, right? That is because of this only. If those modules are imported in the static, so they also will be coming part of it. So now we see it has like this. And also not only that, there is another way also. Means from this folder, you imported this function, sorry, this script. So after importing, you got everything, right? Maybe like you want to do selectively only factorial. So then how we do see here? In this case, from my folder dot myops import factorial. Very precisely you can ask. So then you can do only that operation. So whenever you want to do selective imports, you can do like this. So this is fine. And similarly, there is one more logic that you need to be aware of. Assume that I have some file which is present somewhere else in a different directory. Okay, in current directory, fine, sir. So maybe like I will write something outside, or like somewhere in middle of something else. Maybe like under the dictionaries, or like let me take, yeah, maybe like under the dictionaries, I wrote one file. So maybe like say calculator, again the same calculator. Why every time calculator? Maybe like fib.py. So it's for calculating the Fibonacci numbers. Fibonacci of number if I give. So those many numbers it will create. Say Fibonacci series. So numbers is equal to some list you write, and every time you parse. So for the first and the second, say number 1 comma number 2 is equal to 0 comma 1. So for underscore in range of this number, those many times you loop for it and get the number 1 comma number 2 is equal to number 2 comma number 1 plus number 2. So this is a standard way of doing. So all the numbers which are getting generated, I'm trying to push to it. So like, so numbers dot append of number 2. So number 1 plus number 2. Yeah, this is correct. So finally, if I want to return that numbers, Maybe like here I have one constant also. Maybe like I'm doing a constant of dozen is equal to 12. I have two things like this now. Now, how do you import this function, which is way behind somewhere else, right? So how to import? It is one level up or two levels up, or like how it is. If I go, I am way behind in it. So generally, if you want to refer this folder, how do you refer? From the outside, if I see. If I say ls, means current directory, it will show, right? If I say ls dot dot, means one level above I'm asking. One level above means math and so and so. And if I say ls slash two dots, means two levels above. Two levels above means it is showing all the directories level, right? So within this, if you want to go to this collections, that is how we need to go, right? So I will go to collections, 06 collections. And within that you have dictionaries. So within that you have dictionaries, 04 dictionaries. And within that you have fib.py. Means if you go in this directory structure, you can import. Means if you have a file, I can do like this also. Case 3. This is very, very interesting. So what I do, from this directory structure, import, say like fib. If I do like this, so will it work? First of all, let me try. You understood that structure, and I'm asking. So clear Python J so and so. Where am I? In the current directory only, right? Yeah, still I'm here. Python J underscore sys module path. It is saying that hey, you cannot do like this. Then if you have a relative path like this, a one level above, two levels above, then how to do? So if you have like that, then you can you need to think of. So one level above means you can do a dot, but two levels above, three levels above, this is not a correct way. Then what is the story, sir? So in this case, what we can do, there is something called as sys.path, right? Generally, sys.path only it will check every time. We have seen this sys.path. Means the code is not there in any of this path. It's not in current directory. So then like how to do? So for this path, we can append this path. What is this path? This directory structure. If I do like this directory structure, it will append. Now, if I ask hey, print sys.path, so it will do. Append means in the last it will come. Now, did you see in the path sys.paths again I got? In the last I got this one. And sometimes if you need to do an append, sometimes we need to do insert. Because if this path need to be preferred, then instead of an append, we should do a insert. Because it's a list. Either we can do an append or insert. If you want to prioritize this path, you do an insert. If you want to just add this path also, you can do an append. So just because like whenever they are referring in that structure only, they will go right in this order only. Okay. So this will do. Now you got the path. Yeah, let me show when you do insert. Similarly, it will do. And if you want the entire paths, okay. So instead of printing, same like this, I can do a path print. You can see that. So I am doing it. Clear and so and so. Did you see our path came in the starting and before that this came, right? So now if I say import fib, the moment I did a fib import, it should automatically import and it should create a local file. If you execute now, did you see a PyCache file was created here? Fib C Python 3.10 Python PyVC file. Means we are able to import this one, which is way back somewhere outside. And if I ask print dir of this fib, you can notice what is it about. Did you see the dir means doesn't it is showing what are we wrote? And also the Fibonacci series. And apart from that, others are all as it is. So now I can use and ask. So print f of, so fib dot Fibonacci series, and fib dot dozen, right? Dozen is equal to, and similarly fib dot Fibonacci series. So print of f of fib dot Fibonacci series is equal to, you can see both the results, and as it is a function, we can make a call. If I make a call which say like 4, so it will create like 4 values. So it created the fib dozen you are able to use. So this is very different, right? So where like in the third case, so file present, script present in different directory. So this is the other way. So this is what you should be aware of. So any file when it is did, so it will work like this. And at the same time, there is one more thing called as sys.get don't write bytecode. If I do don't byte write code is equal to true, from then onwards, if it does any imports, it will not do so. So anything you write, so it will be direct straight. So means I can take any module and I use it anything, right? I told. So any directory structure I can go, maybe like debugging or like exception handling. So or see here also there is a calculator. I can ask it to execute, or something can happen. So one more thing I want to tell you is that, yeah. So whenever you are working in the sys.dot module, so if I write like this, don't repeat, do not write bytecode in the starting itself. Subsequently, it will not write. Say like somewhere I wrote here in after this J module I wrote only for this module I am writing. Like don't write bytecode for the third case. So now you see here there is a bytecode file created. If I delete that permanently, so the bytecode file is deleted. For the first two, you didn't write anything. Only here you wrote don't write bytecode. Means every time if you delete all of them also, every time it will generate. Whenever it is executed, those many times it will generate. But only in this directory it will not generate because after that I wrote these things, right? Now you see, if I repeat again, did you see you got for the J calculator? Because you did a J calculator, it imported bytecode file was created. So whereas for my folder also it created a bytecode again. Whereas for the this D dictionary, so in that like bin.py, fib.py, so bytecode is not created because you mark it like this. Sir, in which case we need to handle this bytecode don't write? Sometimes when you do in a production code, any changes you do, sometimes the changes will not be reflecting immediately because these bytecode files are not generating, and due to that you get an issue sometimes in production. So in that cases, people will say don't write bytecode. So to write everything from scratch. So in fact, there is no proper way to say that bytecode creation will increase your performance, but like it is some kind of pre-processing. That's it, I would say. And one more thing to be aware of, say like I have this module, say like in this collections only, this fib only, it's there something, and this module, say assume that I have some print statement that I want to generate Fibonacci numbers. So here I wrote, what is that I am asking? Hey, generate Fibonacci of say 10. Fibonacci of 10 is equal to. I can write like this, right? Say Fibonacci of 10, Fibonacci of say 5, Fibonacci of 1, so Fibonacci of 3. I wrote something. Now, if I want to execute this code, generally how to execute? Go to the directory or like do anyway. So if I say Python execute, okay, did you see that this code is executing? Fine. Whenever it works, it is fine. But now coming to our code, where we are working on this, so sys.platform, sys.with path, and we are just importing, right? When we are importing, only our code need to be executed. So we are importing the fib, and we are asking for Fibonacci of 4 only. Now you see what will happen. Did you see? You asked for Fibonacci of 4 only, but why these are executing? Means it's how it is like this. Means someone of your friend has created one function for connecting to a Facebook, assume, and you are using that code for connecting to Facebook of your account, but he wrote his code for connecting to his account. Now if it is connecting to his account and your account also, it makes no sense, right? You want only the code, not the usage. So that's the reason every time when you write a code, we need to write something called as the name is equal to underscore underscore main underscore underscore. What is this concept means? Whenever you are executing any code, there are two ways. So either you can run a Python code directly or indirectly. When you import a code also, it will indirectly execute it. So it will execute and load all the things. So that's the reason you can write a one statement. So when the name is directly, I can say that, so this script is executed directly. Directly means Python space fib.py. So this script is imported. So now we see here, I wrote this thing, right? Now we observe carefully. If I call this script directly, if I copy this path and say Python space so and so, did you see this script is executed directly? This is what we know till now. But indirectly also we can execute like this, right? Now we see here Python space j underscore sys.path. Did you see that this script is imported? Means any code when you are importing, this name will not be py. So sorry, name will not be main. Main will be the same module name. So whenever you call any script directly, only it will happen. And now we understood why we need to write the conditions. So now every time you need to go in this structure, write all functions and scripts, everything in the top, the usage down within this condition. Then this script is directly executed, then this will execute usage. If not, if someone is loading, importing, only the functions and the code will be imported. So their usage will happen. Now due to that, as I did this condition, did you see when we did in a usage, these things were not executed? So that is what we should be aware of. Sys.path. So sys.path is such a beautiful thing. We can do a lot of things with it. And apart from that, so sys.thing, there is other things that you should be aware of. This is kind of like the most important point in a sys module. In a sys module, when you're working, I think like I can close all these things. You understood about packages, all the management, everything. There is something like command line choose. Hey, okay. Command line arguments. What is this command line arguments? What is the purpose of it? So I will tell you a very interesting story. So the sys module will be helpful in different ways. You remember in the previous things I told that every file, the moment you import, it will have certain metadata. Every file, f of, if you ask underscore underscore file. So this is what you have seen earlier also, right? So now I'm in the current directory, clear and Python. So k command so and so. So did you observe that the moment I executed, I got this code? Means I did a Python so and so and I got this answer. And in the same fashion, there is one more thing. A Python file can be executed different ways, right? I'm in the local directory, so I can execute Python space k so and so. Means directly the file name I executed. So indirectly also I can execute, right? So how I can go? I can go one directory above and I can ask Python. So one directory above means what? Colon 02 sys module. What is this? Okay, it's a line exit. Okay. 02. Yeah. So like this also we can execute. So what I want to tell to you is that there is one more thing called as sys.argv. So there is one more command called as sys.argv. So a Python script can be executed in different ways. Directly we can execute. Oh, we need to import it. Okay, I imported. So clear the screen. Now I am executing. When I executed a Python script directly, did you see that sys.argv has one argument? Only the Python script name. Whereas in file, you have the entire thing. Whereas the same thing can be execute going one level above also. 02, if I say, means I can go one level above and execute. So now did you see the file name is the same in both the cases, but sys.argv is having a list of your path that you give. In the same fashion, the same Python script can be executed two levels above also. I can go two levels above and ask like 10 modules. Under that, like I have 02. Under that, I have this one. When I have gone like that, it is giving so and so. But file is not changed. I can go like three levels above also. So if I go three levels above, so whatever I have, I will take, yeah, I have Python code space, right? So I go to this Python code space. In that I have 10. In that I have 02. In that I have k, so and so. So observe carefully all the cases. Whenever I am giving, the file name is not changing, but only this were changing in all the things. So this is what I want to bring to your notice. This sys.path is such an interesting thing that it will store all this information. If I can store in a doc strings, you can better remember. I think like what is the nuisance here? So this part. So this is what the common path, right? I can remove this path. Now you see. So in a command line, whenever I'm executing, so Python slash so and so, I'm getting these two outputs. So whenever I'm executing like Python's one level above, in that case also I'm getting two values. Whereas in this case also I'm getting two values. So whereas in this case also I'm getting two values. So whichever way if I go, I'm getting like two values. Now did you understand? The file name is not changing in all the things. Whatever you give, it is giving. The path also it is giving like that, right? In that direction it is doing. So file tells about the file and the way in which you access and all this information. But sys.argv tells us something interesting. The way in which you access the particular code, how you have executed. Not only this, there is one more thing about this sys.argv. This sys.argv means like we'll have something else also. If I go further, Python, say so and so, means what are the file name I have. Apart from file name, I can give some inputs also. Did you observe carefully? When I give apart from my file few other inputs, in that case the sys.argv and the file name, if you see the difference, you will understand. Both the file and sys.argv both are like, see here, it is only the file name, but sys.argv has apart from file name the values also. Though I have given integers, it is like this, right? But let me give this time. So Python k so and so, I give it 2, I have a none. maybe like I write some string, some number, so whatever I give. But did you see that in all the cases it is taking like a string only? So that's a beauty. Whatever you give, it will take like a string only. Whatever you give, it is taking like a string only. So that's a thing about sys.argv. And so one more thing I want to tell to you is that this file name and the sys.argv of 0th element will be the same. That's what, right, we have seen in the first few cases. Means sys.argv is a list of multiple values. Means apart from your things, it will give few other attributes also. So if I can see the total length, so number of arguments, minimum sys.argv will have 1 at any point, because how a file will be called. So whenever you are making a call with those number of paths, you can see that. So with this, what I can do, sir? So what is advantage? So let me give you one thing, so then you will understand all in one shot. So there is something called as like argparse 03 argparse. With this argparse, you will understand the entire scenario in one program. If I take one example called as argparse, say I am taking for a simple example. Assume that I have some code and I want to use that code for connecting to a one server. So, but like at this moment you are very basic. So instead of connecting to a server, we can just print the values. If I was given like a username, password, and a server name, with these details, I want to print the details. Say what is the server, how to use it. Now with this, like I can do. You see the server login details are like this. So now we see what will happen. 03 argparse. If I clear the screen and if I ask Python argparse, did you see what happened? Whatever the code I gave, it is executing. But just imagine if you are in a real-time code, will you do like this? Because like you are hard coding everything. When you are hard coding, let's say you gave this code to someone else. If they want to modify, obviously they need to come to the system script and they modify it. Just imagine that this code is used in production by someone people. So anytime when you are working, they will change the values. But there is a probability that whenever they are changing these values, they can change any of the structure or any of the other part of code. So due to that, like the hard coding is not a good idea. So someone should edit it. So it is not a good idea to modify the script. Then what else is the solution, sir? So the next solution that we have is about, instead of you hard coding, can't you get the values in runtime? That is another interesting solution. So to get the values in runtime, how to get the values in runtime? Using the input built-in function. So using input built-in function, I can ask, in runtime, I will give Uday. So I will give some password, something like so and so, some number, and some server, so and so dot google.com. So it will give the details and it will print them. This is fine. But the problem with this runtime input is that whenever you are working with a large, more time taking things, so then obviously in that case, it will take more time. Assume that sometimes your code is working for like 2 hours. Somewhere in middle of these 2 hours, it will ask for you the details. In that case, will you sit for the 2 hours before it? And also like, so one more problem is that the password you need to pass directly. But if someone is there behind you, they can see the password also, right? Then how to avoid it? First, let's see that. So for that, there is something called as a getpass. There is a module called as getpass. Getpass is very interesting. So getpass will take, this is a built-in module again. Same the inputs I used as it is, but instead of that, I used a getpass for password only. Now in this case, when I'm executing, I will give the username. But when I am typing the password, did you see what's happening? You can't see what is typing, right? This is what the same mechanism Linux is using. And if I give some server name, Did you see? When I typed, you are not seeing the password, right? So no one can shoulder back and see the passwords. This is one thing. What is the other problem? So when you are working in runtime, so your script is running for like 4 hours. So then we can't wait for all the time just to when it is asking to reply. Or else your script is running for like 30 seconds only. But what if it in the early morning 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock? Will you sit before the system before that? That is also not a good idea. In that case, we should go for this sys.argv. Sys.argv is so interesting that you can take anything from it. So means like you pass the inputs and we can get from it. So means like you take the inputs from the user in runtime. Now your script is executing for 1 minute or 30 minutes or 30 hours, it doesn't matter. So when executing, then itself I will pass Uday at the rate of so and so and something dot google.com. Then you see how much time it will executing, it will execute like that. And whenever you have like this kind of unpacking, means 3 values assigned to 3 variables, instead of you doing in a 3 lines, you can assign to this one. But the problem here is that what if user is not passing like exact number of arguments? Then you are expecting 3 arguments, user pass through or 2 arguments only. So in that case, you need to write your own custom help. Means whenever the user is given, you need to check how many values were given. Apart from your file name, you need to pass 3 arguments. So total argument should be length so and so. Like that, if your length is less than that, you are exiting. So you wrote your own custom help. So this is what happens. Next is like without you doing all these things and you doing the serving. The last one is about you taking the sys.argv. So means like instead of this sys.argv, there is a one last thing called as argparse. Earlier there used to be argparse, now there is an argparse. So the beauty of this argparse is that first we need to create it. What are the description? To understand more about how this argparse works, so in the previous problem we have seen that in sys.argv there are two standard issues. One is like the order can be different or the help is not good. To understand again more about it, let me delete these things a moment and see it again. So when we use the sys.argv, one thing is like if the number of values are not exactly as we needed, then we need to write a one statement that hey, if it is less than that, we need to initiate a help. So if I do like a Python place a so and so directly if I give, as I didn't give any arguments, it is saying the help that hey, what are the code you are executing? So along with that, you should pass username, password, server name, FQDN. That's what it's saying. Means so if I pass all those 3 values, it works. Say Python, argparse, say Uday, some password, and some server name, say photos.google.com. So I gave this 3. So here one more issue is that what if I give these values in a different order? So assume that first I give the server name, then I give the username and password. Assume. So if I give the same password, means I was supposed to give in one order, I changed the order. Then you see what happened. And also, if you give any data type also, it will treat like a string only. So these were the standard issues with sys.argv. So help is not there. The order, if they are changed, then also it's gonna be issue. And also you don't have a proper help. So you need to write your own custom help and you need to exit when things are not good. So that same problem can be overwritten in a better way using this. To address that, we have gone for the fourth method, method 5, so which is like argparse. So earlier there used to be another module called as optparse. Now no one is using that. With argparse, if you want to use, first we need to import that and create our own structure. So in argparse, first and foremost is whatever the value we are creating, for that we need to import argparse. The parse, it's a built-in thing. So we need to create a parser object. It can be like a very simple argparse dot argument parser. So you need not give anything at all. Even if you don't give also, it works perfectly. But after creating this, we need to add for this parser dot add argument. What argument you want to do? Generally, for any argument, there is a short form, long form. Means when you want to say username, in a short form like -u, or like in a long form --, username. In fact, it's a convention generally for long form or like this we do. And similarly, you say parser dot add argument of password -p. For password also you can say --, password I have given. Now the next one is parser dot add argument of -s server name. Like this I have 3 arguments now. For these 3 arguments, after giving, now I am taking what all the arguments are there. To get that, from this parser itself, I can get what is the argument. So whichever is the long value here, that is the argument. It's kind of like an attribute. Okay, so for that, to get it, first, whatever you passed, from that you need to do parser dot parse arguments. So after it will parse, so from this, if you want to get the username, this args dot this username, whichever is long form, that will be the username. So means like if I want username, I can get like this. In the same fashion, if I want password, so here I want like user underscore name. So I can assign to that variable. Similarly, password is like the same. I can say password is equal to args dot whichever is the long form you give, that would be the value. Either you can assign to a variable or you can directly use it. It's up to us. And server name. So here it is like server underscore name. That is our variable is equal to args dot whichever is a long form server name, no underscores. I can take it. Now you see the code how it will be. If I say like Python, say this program, by default what it is saying, it is not throwing any error. It is giving all like defaults. So when you didn't give, why it is giving defaults? Did you tell something to it? Means when you didn't give, it is giving like that. If I say -h, it will give the detailed help that hey, so these are all optional. If you don't give also, it will have a default value. But for the default value, what should be the value that we can specify? So if I tell them as like type is equal to string, then in this case, what will happen? As you specified one of them a type, so you can see here, again, still it is none. So, and see here, for this also, I'm mentioning that it is a type string. This is also type string I'm mentioning. At the same time, if I mention one of them as required, so if I see required is equal to true, means no matter what you do, this argument is mandatory. If you don't pass, it will not allow. Means it didn't broke the code. It only gave a help to you that, hey, error, the following requirement is mandatory. That's why this is a typical Linux convention. For any argument, if there is no square braces, it is mandatory. If you go for like the man of this ls, you can see the Linux documentation. Means ls is mandatory. After that, these are optional. So why I gave this man of Linux means, so these are like Linux standards. Man is for documentation in Linux. You take any command, you just do a man of command, you get like the usage. So these braces and everything are like the structure of them. So in the Linux structure itself, it will give. And if I say pass the first value, say argparse -u. If I say like hey, username is Uday, if I pass. Did you see? For others, it is giving a defaults. So whenever you make required equal to true, we should not give a default. But whenever you didn't give a requirement equal to true, then you should give it. So in the first case, I didn't give. In the last case, if I say default is equal to, say if the user didn't give, so I want to take a default. So photos.google.com. Now, if you see clear, so Python, only the username I give. The username I give, which is mandatory. Password I didn't give, it's not mandatory. For server name, I mention like default. So whenever you mention as default, you should not mark as argparse. But sir, how do you get a documentation? If I say Python arg so and so -h, it will give the entire documentation. What is this username about? What is the password about? You didn't give anything. So we can create our own help that like, what is this about and all these things. Maybe for each other argument I am doing. So I am giving a help called as login username. In the same fashion, for the password, I will say login user password. Say login username, login password. So in the same fashion, for this also, maybe some server name I will write. If I have, I can pass help. Now like this, I gave the help of all these three. If I do again -h, now did you see the help was more detailed? It gave what are you gave here. At the same time, this argparse has two things. Initially, when you created the argparser, there are two things called as description and epilogue. And in fact, these two are not mandatory, but you should be aware. What is a description? What is an epilogue? Description is something which will come in the starting, epilogue which comes at the ending in the documentation. You say this is your documentation. Whenever you give, description will come above it, epilogue below it. I have added both of them. Now you see, after your help was came, so what are you do description that came in the starting, and epilogue is something which came at the ending. So it is kind of like documentation, which is not mandatory, but if you give, it will take it. So with this, so we can solve a lot of problems. And also, so these data, you got it right. I mentioned like type is equal to string. If you load them, it will be of type string only. So to understand more, so if we can take a simple example, another, maybe like let's take a calculator example. In this example, to parse it, say like I am doing a small calculations. So for that I create like addition, subtraction, multiplication like that. Now first I need to create an arg parser. The step is what? First I need to create the parser object. So parser object means I imported the arg parse. So parser is equal to arg parse dot argument parser. You create it. And it's not mandatory to add both description and epilogue. If you don't write both also, it works fine. But if you write one of them also, fine. In fact, you are telling about what is your code, what it is doing. Then after this, you need to add the parser to arguments to this parser. So parser dot add arguments. This is the structure. If you assume that every time you have 2 arguments or 3 arguments, you need to pass. So it's not mandatory that you should give like 2. So full way or small way. It's up to you. If I give like hyphen number 1, so I should give in that way only. It doesn't mean like you can give a short form and full form both. Say like help I am writing. Say like first value, and what is the type? By default it's of type string, but if I want to type like an int, I can take it. And if you want like a default value, I can see whenever I'm marking as a default, it is not mandatory, right? But say that as it is the first value, I want to make as required is equal to true. Then you should need it. Similarly, parser dot add parser of hyphen number 2. Say you can give the help saying that second value. After that, if I ask type is equal to integer, and this time if I make like a default equal to 0. So, and like if I give the third value, so parser dot add argument of say hyphen 3. Again, I can give a help saying like optional value. So whether you give or not, so then I can write. So this one, if I say type is equal to float and a default is equal to 0.0. You see how I'm writing? So the arguments, defaults, and all the information. Now I have all these three. After having this, I need to build the parser and get the context values. How to build the parser? So args equal to parser dot parse arguments. This is standard thing. So from this, if you want to extract the values, number 1 is equal to args dot number 1, because we have only one form. Similarly, number 2 is equal to so args dot number 2, and number 3 is equal to args dot number 3. Like this, we have three values. For these three values, it doesn't mean that every time we should generate like this in use. I can, in fact, for the two numbers I define, but the third value I can directly ask also. It is my comfort level. So if I say like so and so, then it will throw an error that, hey, so the number 1 is mandatory, you didn't give that value. So because here you mentioned as required equal to true. If I didn't write, if I write like required equal to true and also default is equal to 0, in fact this is not correct, right? If I write both of them, so then it will be confused. So as you mentioned required equal to true, it is still asking, and there is a default value also. So if I place default value first and then required equal to true, so then also it will take, say that, it is required. So that's why it is like confusion. If you are passing values, don't mention as default. So if I give, I didn't take any value, so it gave it now. Now, from this, if you want to do the addition, subtraction, multiplication, I can do directly. So means if I say like print links and so, see here, number 1 and 2, and the third value I'm passing as this. Now we see here, you got like first two are integers, third one is float, because you mentioned first two as integers, third one is float. Now, if I call in this case, you see the addition result is coming, because right, so all were zeros. But if I pass some values, hyphen number 1 as like 10, you got the results correspondingly. And see hyphen number 2 is like 20. So hyphen number 3 is like 30. So if I give like 3 values, it will take 3 values. If you take 2 values also, it will take. So like that, you can give options. So 2 values you can give, or like you don't give at all value, only one value you, or like you don't give any values, because as nothing is like required in these cases, so it works perfectly. So like that it works. Hope it's fine in terms of the usage. So like that, whenever you have, so you can use it. It's not that like we cannot use, and all like argparse, when you're passing, you can pass like a list also, right? What if you want to pass like a list or something? So for that we have like argparse. If you take this example, so the story is same. So every time, first you need to import, create an argparser object, any custom object, Then like you need to pass the arguments. Say like if I am passing, say my parser dot add arguments of I am saying like hyphen input. Only one thing I give. So input say so values, input values. I am saying like action. Action is another thing. For the first time you're seeing. Action can be store or like get the things values like that. And I'm saying that number of arguments. If let's say 3, like this, if I give. Now, if I do like a parser, how to get the values? Whatever you create the parsers. So args equal to parse my parser dot parse arguments. If I do, now finally I get it. So from this, if I ask, hey, print me args dot what are this value rates that it will be coming this value. So to get this, I can say print of f of is equal to. Now we see here. So Python see so and so. Did you see the input values are none because you didn't give any values. But so for the first time you didn't give anything, so you got a none. So that's how it worked. In terms of usage, you didn't pass, it didn't work. But next time, if I pass like 12, so what it is saying, hey, input takes like 3 arguments. You are supposed to give me 3 arguments. So means if I give like 12, so 13, 14. So now we see here, it is saying like, hey, input unrecognized arguments 12, 13, so and so. Means you told I need 3 arguments. I gave it, but still why it is not taken. So I will take like in a list these 3 arguments, but still it will tell that. So that's the reason whenever you are taking this, one thing you need to be aware is you need to pass when you're passing the arguments. So like the type is equal to integer because these are not strings. You need to pass that. Now, if I do like that, if I pass 3 arguments, so what it is saying, hey, you need to pass in this way. So Python, so see argparse hyphen input values say I need to pass like 12, 13, 14. Now did you see? So when I pass like 12, 13, so and so, it is working. What are you passed as it is? If you want, like I can ask type of these values. So type not only the values, but the type also I can ask whatever is having. Now if you see, if I pass 3 values, it is saying it's of type list. Means you should not pass like a list, but you should pass like discrete values. It is taking 3 values. Now, if I go like 2 values, it won't take. If you pass like, 4 values, it won't take. So you need to exactly pass as much as needed, not less or not greater. So this is what is more important. So if you pass like that, it works. And similarly, when you're passing like the number of arguments, so this store and all these things we can work. And if you want to pass like a dates or something else, also we can work.